welcome you to our session today. Um, we are going to be talking about integrating uh, open education resources into our teaching, looking at assessment, information, collaboration. We're going to start with talking about planning, and then we are going to be talking about the Zuni platform, the Catch It app that was just developed and researched last year. And this is all free to you. All right. So first of all, we have Sarah, we have Rhonda, and we have Lamisha. Could you guys please introduce yourselves? You might want to unmute for that. You can certainly video if you want, but please at least unmute and introduce yourselves. Tell me where you are and what you're doing and why you came to this session. I hope you have all your coffee and we'll take about a 5-minute break right in the middle so you can go get a drink and take a little quick break. So go ahead. Sarah, you want to introduce yourself? Amy? You're still muted.
Hi, I'm Amy Anderson. I'm a school psychology specialist. I work for the Little Rock School District.
Okay. And why did you come to today's session?
Well, I just want to expand my knowledge of these things. I've been to several of the UCA trainings this summer and they've all been really good.
Okay, very good. Okay, Sarah? How about Rhonda?
Hello, not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear? Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, I'm Rhonda Mailer and I teach at Bergman and so I just enjoy these trainings and I went to UCA and I've not found anything bad that they do yet.
Well, that's good to know. That's a good way to put it, I guess. Well, welcome. Lamisha.
I'm Lamisha Cook. I am a new teacher, so this will be my first year teaching here in Conway. And I graduated from UCA this past May. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to actually get to do some PD this summer and just learn some more things that I could use in the classroom.
Okay, very good. Well, we're going to learn about two things: a planning model and using open education resources. Tina McCord is the president of Zuni Learning Tree. She's presenting at a conference this morning, and she is running a little bit late. And she said she would jump on as soon as she was done. She's running a booth, I believe, which means you're just it's sort of there. So she's trying to get someone to cover for her. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be presenting, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the planning that we do and how that fits in with using educational resources. We got a grant last year from the Department of Education Small Business Innovation Research Project. And so for 9 months, we worked with a school here in Arkansas to field test and develop an application with that tied assessment data to high quality standards aligned resources. And one of the things that we've been talking about and we've been looking at is how teachers plan, how it saves planning time, and how different technology resources can help them do that. So that's what we're going to be going to do today. There is going to be at some point, we will present the research if we have time on the project. You're going to see the outcomes of the research, but there is going to be a time where we're going to have you actually download and install or download. Well, it's a website, so it would be just going to that website and doing a login, so you'll each have free access to the Zuni Learning resources. The Zuni platform is free to all teachers. And so you have access to 40,000 resources on there, a planning area, teacher professional resources, and You'll have the chance to play with that a little bit. We have a little assignment for you to do to go find some resources, and then we'll compare amongst us what kind of resources that you found. So hopefully you'll enjoy today's session, and you take something back for the next school year. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, you should see my PowerPoint up here. We have this opening slide really to prompt make you aware of the different kinds of programs that we have here at UCA. Specifically, we have it through all of these are through the College of Education. I'm in, and it's the Department of Elementary Literacy and Special Education. In our program here, it's listed right here, Special Education, MSc, MAT, GC. It's also for, we also have a resource room endorsement in addition to the special education graduate programs. And so these are something you might want to consider. One of the things, last week I did a session on one learning strategy, the interpreting visual strategy, which is required by the standards for you to teach kids as they read textbooks to use visuals, illustrations, is integrated with text and to be able to use visuals. And so that was an example of a SIM model intervention that is an example of the kind of strategic, evidence-based, high-leverage practice interventions that are offered within our graduate programs. It's embedded in our methods classes. Today's session on open education resources, I use in my both my graduate assessment class in terms of assessment resources, and also I use it in my undergraduate classes when they do data-driven decision making. And they take data on students and then they have to find resources. And one of the things that's really important is that since these resources are all online and they're all free, they don't have to go be looking into curriculum libraries and laboratories for resources to do their lesson planning. So I use this, and we use this in our math and science undergraduate program courses. We collaborate on projects, and one of the things about the Zuni Learning Platform that I like as a teacher is I can share my site with other teachers and we can collaborate on joint projects in terms of the resources in there. The other thing that's really interesting that we learned from our research project is that the Zuni Learning Tree platform has a lot of alternative resources like songs about processes and procedures in math, poems, stories, stories that the app will read aloud to students. And the kids like the games. There's a growing amount of virtual games around learning, and those are included in this website as well. So one of the things is I find is that I'm always discovering something new. And the other thing is that there's a subscription that if a school wants to, every single student in the school or a classroom can have access to Zuni, and then parent communication, and the students can have their own way of accessing the resources. So let's just get started. I'm going to be presenting. I'm like an associate professor at the University of Central Arkansas. I've been teaching since 1975, so 40 years. And I was a history teacher in middle school and high school, and I was a special education teacher in Iowa, and I taught multi-categorical special education, which means any student with a disability I would have and schedule them in my classroom on my caseload. Then I went to the University of Kansas and got my doctorate there. and actually taught there at the University of Kansas for 20 years before going into retirement, and then got tired of retirement and came back to do this. So Tina McCord is president of the Zuni Learning Tree. Zuni Learning Tree is housed, their company is right here in Conway, Arkansas. So it's very easy to work with them and collaborate with them. And she's always willing to come and do presentations to schools and help them with the technology and getting on board with open education resources. Robin Slender is a professional developer for Zuni Learning Tree. I don't know if she'll be joining us today or being manning the booth while Tina can join us. But one of the things that we've been doing is taking a look at other other resources that teachers can use, like writing IEPs and the law and stuff, and including that as part of the library. One of the other thing about Zuni and that Tina will talk to you about is you can request resources and the resource team will go find online resources for you. So that service is, I think, amazing. So you just have to ask and they'll go find stuff. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be starting by talking a little bit about the research to practice part of this, and a little bit about what we know about planning and how then Zuni could fit in with that. So our goals today is to describe how the use of OERs should be grounded in the use of standards aligned planning, and become aware of the steps in the use of the smarter instructional cycle in teaching critical content that might be supported by the OERs. I didn't add these because I ran out of time, but the other things is to learn Zuni, learn how to use Zuni, and then learn the research outcomes of the project that we ended back in last February. We ended the project and submitted our final report. One of the things that I've done over the years is that I've been affiliated with an instructional model called the Strategic Instruction Model. I'm one of the authors of some of the learning strategies and the content enhancement routines. The Strategic Intervention Model is one of the few instructional models that's on the IES website as an evidence-proven program. It has the Extreme Reading Program, which Arkansas is considering as it's been adopted and approved by the Arkansas Department of Education as a secondary model for promoting research reading in the secondary, middle school, and secondary level, kids 4th grade through up. Once they pass the decoding and the fluency, then they can move into some of the SIM strategies. One of the things that I've done is I've worked with many states. The state of Florida is primarily, the state of Montana, California, Oregon, Iowa, and other states to implement SIM as a statewide model. North Carolina, Virginia are some other ones. And over 5 or 6 years, watched how evidence-based interventions were implemented. One of the things for diverse groups of students that we have learned over this period of time is that we need to be more direct and explicit in the way we teach students in order to be successful. And so part of the SIM model is to promote that kind of direct instruction for the kids who need it across the 3-tier model. And so one of the things that I've learned is that teachers will buy into an intervention, and it might be evidence-based and it might be a high leverage practice, and they'll implement it. And they'll implement it, though, they implement it as silos, and then and they'll be really effective for that lesson. And then they'll go on to more traditional instruction that may be less effective. So part of the issue is beginning to look at what makes interventions effective, how do we plan for that, and how can we evolve using what we know about effective interventions to shape the other things we do to make them more effective. So that's going to be kind of an under theme as we talk about that today. This slide also talks about that shift in mindset that we have to make as we begin to make changes in practice and plan how we're going to teach them over the year. One of the things from the people who do research in mindset or how we think and approach cognitively our instruction is that with the new standards, we need to make some shifts in how we begin to use instructional practices for a growth mindset. And a growth mindset means we are willing to grow. We're willing to change. The first one is a belief in the evolution of a standards-informed curriculum. So you got to believe that standards are important to guide our curriculum. The second is you have to believe in planning coherent and enhanced courses, units, and lessons. That means that when kids go experience a course, they see the big picture, they see how each unit is linked to each other unit, and then when they go into the next grade, they see how the last year's English class is going to support next year's English class. Another one is believe in providing integrated, transparent, and shared instructional experiences. The standards are all about kids collaborating one another together, sharing their insights, learning together, and having the practices integrated. Another one is believing in supporting instruction with standard-lined assignments. So we may have a standard, but those standards need to be tested at the assignment level. So if you were to identify facts and inferences in text, you would do that in a social studies chapter on the Dred Scott decision, or you might do it in science in terms of comparison and contrast on different kind of cell structures, and what could you infer about those. And so each assignment needs to have some kind of standard aligned a mission to it. And finally, believing in using data from formative, summative, and constructive standards to align assessments. One of the things with professional learning communities and looking at school-wide data and setting goals, using things like Zuni, which had assessments built into them, using for pre-referral processes, an assessment model. We take formative data to make decisions about whether a student should be referred for special education, for more testing, and that often uses kind of formative data collection. And so what are programs that do that? But across those things, you have to believe in using collaborative co-construction, collaborate with others, you co-construct together to develop fluency for higher order reasoning. So regular use of comparative reasoning, inferential reasoning, causative reasoning across the classes to meet the standards. And finally, and that gets to what where we're headed towards this session, is believing in the urgency of integrating technologies across learning experiences. And I think most of us who worked through the pandemic learned a lot more about technology than we did before in terms of how do we integrate technology into classes. I know that for the last over the last year, I've only sat at my computer and taught. So it's been really difficult. One of the things though we did do is last fall during the pandemic, we worked with a school and went to that school with both students who were in a virtual classroom, virtually taught at home, and then we're also in the classroom. So we field tested a lot of the things that we're talking about today in a COVID environment in a school where they had half the kids at home and half of the kids in the classroom, and how that worked out. One of the things that we want to talk about is teaching with the end in mind. Teachers are required to teach in ways that help students achieve standards. Planning requires that teachers incorporate evidence-based high leverage practices to be effective in teaching learners. Now, one of the things that we ask on our comprehensive exams here in our master's program is, what is an evidence-based practice that you would recommend for use with this student? And here's a case. And we ask, well, do you know what an evidence-based practice is? And an evidence-based practice is not something that a teacher determines is effective, but it is research external to the school, has been tried, and that evidence, that practice has been vetted, and there's evidence in the literature that shows that this practice works. Another concept is high leverage practices. The Council for Exceptional Children, in combination with the Cedar Center at the University of Florida, in combination with the University of Michigan, have developed what they say are high leverage practices. And what they've done is they have reviewed the research and have developed a set of high leverage practices. And you can purchase the book, the materials from CEC, the Council for Exceptional Children, and they list high leverage practices related to the use of technology, teaching cognitive and metacognitive strategies, assessment, IEP, planning, and many universities are adopting their book, High Leverage Practices, as a major guide for the kind of practices that schools should be using. So, I put that out there, showing that that's a trend that you're going to be seeing more of, the use of high leverage practices across K-12, general and special education. One of the things that's really important in those high leverage practices is that effective planning, and I've misspelled effective here, effective planning is linked to assessment. You plan with the end in mind. You think about the test. So as you think about where you're going, and here are the questions that need to be answering, you immediately think of, how would I measure that? How would I test that? The role of technology plays a big part in this, because many of our assessments are moving to computer-based assessment. What you're doing is a lot of the praxis tests, the ACT tests, all of those are moving to a text environment. This was something that I was reading from people, some who are doing research on technology. Over the past few years, the role that technology, for example, instructional software, digital lesson plans and presentation materials, smart boards, online assessments and learning modules, that role that technology can play, as well as the introduction of mobile technologies called smartphones, tablets, laptops, has become a new factor for teachers to consider in planning. Many kids are bringing their smartphones, and the activities, the games that are being used are actually being brought into the classroom, versus the time when don't bring your phone to school. Well, the smartphones have become a resource for kids that are becoming more and more popular across school districts. The authors here describe the impacts of some of these mobile devices like iPads and smart tablets. When you look at the very best work happening in iPad classrooms, you'll see students creating media, showing their understanding, collaborating with peers, and commuting with broad audiences. The pockets of excellence are ever present and inspiring. And so we see these pockets where kids are really engaged in technology. However, sometimes the pockets are only silos of effective practices and are implemented amid a field of non-so-effective practices. On the whole, however, tablets are most often used to reproduce existing practices, to distribute resources and enable students to take notes. What the authors are saying is we have not leveraged the full power of the technology that we have available to us. And so part of that is to continue to look and explore how we can best do that, so it's both usable, which means that teachers and students like it, and feasible, that it fits into the school budget, it's their system, it's feasible to use it in the time we have available. And so they go on to talk about someday and Monday professional development. And I love that term. On one hand, if technology doesn't help teachers make substantial changes in their classroom practices, if their classroom isn't someday a very different place, then the technology investments aren't worth it. But on the other hand, teachers can't do a gut rehab of their classroom practices in the middle of the year. They need something they can try out on Monday that will take them one step closer to wider change. So what are you going on Monday, but where are you going to go in the future? So it has to do both. Something that you can do tomorrow on Monday, and then but gradually grow and evolve, so that that piece that you did evolves. So it has to be greater than something you can do on one day. Professional learning opportunities should offer a balance of Sunday and Monday-based learning experiments. Sometimes we want teachers to experiment with small steps they can try out right away. And hopefully we're going to give you something today that you can try out right away. Other times we want them to tear down their units or courses and build them anew. Sometimes when you use technology and you realize that explicit instruction for diverse groups is going to mean you're going to have to tear down what you've built and rebuild it so that you can meet more the needs of more learners. Someday professional development requires a much deeper commitment to change. For instance, if teachers intend to use technology to support more project-based learning in a unit, they usually will need to recast the unit through substantial planning and research. So what we have here with Zuni today is, first of all, planning with the end in mind. Standards-based presentations that incorporate assignments and assessments that will lead to higher performance. So this is the model that we're working with today. First of all, we start with our understanding of expected outcomes. And those are often measured by high stakes measures, state assessments, or standardized tests. I know many schools use standardized tests for both formative and summative assessment. And so what do those things measure? What do they test? What is the guidance that those tests give us about what to teach? And so we look for our school resources. What are the tests that schools have purchased? The STAR, MAT, whatever tests that are available on the school resources. Sometimes those are progress monitoring assessments. I know that the DIBELS has been replaced by Acadience. The original authors of DIBELS changed, and now DIBELS has become Acadience. And Acadience is the new DIBELS that schools are beginning to use. And so a major emphasis from the original authors of DIBELS, even though DIBELS was sold and is available from the test developers, Acadience is the one that the DIBELS authors created to improve DIBELS. So sometimes we have that access in terms of understanding phonological awareness and the whole process of progress monitoring in terms of meeting our reading goals. At the secondary level, it may be other kinds of formative assessments like end of course exams, quizzes, other kinds of formative assessments beyond just skill in reading and math and writing. Sometimes schools don't have all the resources they need. Sometimes they need supplemental resources that go beyond what the school has. And here, what I've placed here is that the Learning Tree website is part of those supplemental resources. When you need more resources, then the Zuni Learning Tree website provides some of those. Number one, it provides teacher planning resources. The Catch It app that was newly developed is an app where you input student assessment data, and then it searches the library and it suggests out of 5,000 resources, here are the 5 that match this student's skill at this grade level that you might want to use and try. That's been one of the problems with open education resources, is that it takes so long to search and vet and look at your searches when you are trying to make a plan. So the student completes the standards aligned assignments. And then the fourth one is there is a feedback loop. So once the student completes the assignment, they get to rate it, evaluate it, and comment on it. That goes to the teacher, and then the teacher can comment back, would you like to have more resources like this? And so not only does the Zuni platform have all these open education resources, it has teaching resources that help you give assignments. There's a place to give the student assignments. I want you to complete these 3 resources. It sends it to the students complete it, and then they report back. So it's not just a list of library of resources. It's moving more to how do we use it dynamically in the classroom. It also, the website provides a link so you can add all your school resources to the website, so that's all in one place. And I'm sure Tina can talk more about that. I want to talk a little bit more about this planning process, because one of the problems that I saw in my students, in my classes, and when I worked out with schools, especially in Montana and places that were very remote and they needed supplemental resources, is that they went and found resources that they wanted to use, but the overall planning on how those resources were going to be integrated and how they were going to be organized was just like throwing everything into the pot. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about is a planning process where these resources make sense. And it's called planning, the smarter planning model. And the smarter instructional cycle is what we call it. At each of the letters of the word smarter stand for an acronym. It is an acronym for a step in the process. And so we're just going to go through that. And I urge you, and when we're done, I can send you this PowerPoint presentation, but you might just want to write down a piece of paper and put SMARTER so that you can write next to what each of those steps mean for later reference. The S step stands for shape the critical questions. In our research at the University of Kansas, we had a 5-year research project on teacher planning. And we found that we developed lots of interventions. And then as we watched teachers plan these interventions, we came up with these steps. This is what good teachers do to reach needs of students in diverse classes. And the first step was shape the critical questions. Now, this means that you take a look at your standards, you take a look at your test book, and you create really good questions. Some people call them essential questions. I call them critical questions. Because when I think of critical, I mean, you're in the operating room and you're in critical condition and you're either going to live or you're going to die. And so the critical questions are those things that you live and die by. Kids are not going to be successful in the future if you don't have resources and address the question. Like, questions are shaped by design to show coherence between the standards, how the standards will be addressed in a course, where and how progress towards building fluency in knowledge and skills will be embedded in units, and how standards inform instruction affects lessons. For a unit, for example, if I'm teaching on writing, I'll have a question like, how do you write a great paragraph? And if the student, and what I want the student is to tell me, and if they can't tell me, well, you have a topic sentence that's interesting and it's a grabber. And then you have supporting sentences that maybe have transfers like first, second, third, or the first thing they did, the second thing they did. And then you have a final sentence. Now that's a very basic structure for writing a paragraph. But a great paragraph might need more interest, more examples, more types of things. But just by a question, thinking of a question, how could I check the comprehension formatively to see if a student is going to do well on the test? And if I have a good question like, how do you write a great paragraph? How do you write a great sentence? How do you multiply these kind of numbers? How are the different systems of the body working together to keep us healthy? I could say, well, what do you need to answer that question? So what would be the first thing you do, the second thing you do? I found questions as a way of assessing and questions a way of guiding my planning a very important thing. I believe that when I write a question, I'm turning the attention of instruction to the child. If I have an objective is for me. I want to, my objective is the student will write a paragraph with all the paragraph elements at 90% accuracy. Well, that's an objective for a teacher, but my objective I can turn that question into, well, how do you write a great paragraph? And that makes much more sense to the student. The student can ask that himself and they can turn it around. And my question is, what are the resources I need to be able to teach how to write a great paragraph? The second step is, and this is where we've made the most progress in terms of teachers being more explicit, is map the critical content. When the teachers have to draw a picture of the content and draw arrows between the relationships of that content, they are required to think more deeply about that content, and they are more ready then to answer more questions for more diverse learners because they have a deeper understanding. So mapping the structure of the critical content in a way that shows the relationships and uses signposts to signal or suggest the type of thinking in terms of both breadth and depth establishes a playing field that gives us an area. Here's how we're working for exploring possibilities and defining the problem space for learning. That whole area becomes important. Let me give you an example of a map. Here is a map of the cell. This is a unit organizer software program that you can draw. And so this is mapping the unit. So in this unit on the cell, it's about the fundamental basis of all life. An is about statement that kind of pumps it all together. It's including cell structure, and that continues by cell division and growth by considering structure such as organelles, including both plant, animal, and membranes. And you can see they have line labels there. So our second step of SMARTER is to draw a picture so that you know, I'm talking about cell structure, cell energy, cell division, and growth. The next question is what makes this hard? And let's go back to our SMARTER slides. So we've mapped the critical content. There's an example of a map. It doesn't have to be that complicated, but it's a map that shows the lines and the relationships. I want to know what might make that unit hard. Analyze what makes it hard. Well, one of the things about cells is cells are it's a pretty abstract thing. I have to have a microscope. What's an organelle? So once I decide what's hard about that map of content, and I've got it laid out, the next question is reach enhancement decisions. Using evidence pedagogies, teachers work together to plan how to move away from traditional, less successful instructional practices and toward those practices that enhance. So when I talk about reaching enhanced decisions, I'm saying, do I need to have more effective learning strategies? And I use the example of SIM, because in SIM, we talk about strategies for reading. What do you do when you come to a word you don't know? How do you teach kids to compare two concepts? Providing accommodations that change the trajectory of performance in a class, better grouping, better use of technology, greater use of supplemental resources. So once we've figured this is what makes it hard, how am I going to enhance the content so it's less hard? And so we begin thinking about the resources we need for that. Teach strategically. One of our colleagues at UCA did a little study on this, but all of the interventions by SIM that are used for teaching content in the general ed classroom do three things. Cue, I'm going to cue you to use this kind of resource. We're going to do it together, and then we're going to review it. The cue, do, review is explicit, direct, informed instruction to make sure kids get it. And so the teach strategically is that movement for teaching strategies in the classroom, teaching enhancements, using pedagogies that make a difference, and using the resources to support that. As we move along, we use formative assessments and the resources that provide formative assessment, curriculum-based measures possibly, but evaluation is daily and occurs upon classroom entry, during class, upon classroom exit. Course unit and lesson assignments should be viewed as formative assessments to move to content fluency. Within the Zuni Learning app, there are a variety of assessments that you can use for evaluating learning all the way through. And these can be as simple as thumbs up, thumbs down, exit slips, entrance slips, quick notes. I've used what's called lecture pause, where I present a little bit and then I pause and I have them turn to their neighbor and they summarize what they've just learned, and then one of them report out. So I have my dog with me right here. This is Falcor, and she does not want to she She tells me when it's time for me not to be at the computer anymore. Okay, go. No, you go lay down. Go lay down. Okay, go lay down. That was my behavior guide. Now you go lay down. She's a husky. She's pretty smart. I think maybe she might listen. We'll see. No, I'll put you in your crate. You better go lay down. That always makes her go away, and she's gonna look at me now for a while. So I may have to put her outside or something. Okay, finally the step is reteach or revise. This is the dilemma. We did a study of 50 social studies and 50 science teachers, and we asked them the question, when do you move on? When you move on, how many students have to get how much information in order for you to move on to the next unit? Can anybody tell me what they think the answer to that was? How many students have to move ahead, have to pass in order for you to move ahead? What's the score that they have to get? How much do they have to learn? Anybody have any guesses? Now, these were secondary teachers, middle school, high school teachers, and we asked, how many students, what percentage of your class has to get what percentage of the content in order for you to decide it's time to move on? Well, the answer might shock you. 50% of the kids have to receive 50% of the content. Now, what if that content is critical for the next unit? That means the teacher is going to have to be reteaching and struggling with students who don't understand the basic concepts for that. So that finding right there tells you teachers are struggling to move ahead, to keep along with their pacing guides, to get along in the curriculum, and that the mastery of the most critical stuff. And so I would argue that we need to be better about picking the most critical stuff that all kids need to go. So there is some stuff that 100% of the kids need to know. And that might be just a little bit, it'll only be maybe 20%, but 100% of the kids need to get that. And I think that's the mindset we need to shift to if we are really going to get kids to be able to move through the grades, learning the most critical stuff. And I always say less is more. And what do you want kids to remember 20 years from now? We need guidelines like that in order to help us survive the ongoing curriculum challenges we had. And we need faster ways to get that content and give them independent practice. Okay. So this is just, these are, I've placed in here from the GIST software. This is a course. Well, what we argue in terms of planning here is, what are the 10 questions in this course you want all kids to be able to answer by the end of the year? And so at the end of the unit, you come back to your course questions just so you don't lose the forest for the trees. And so here is high school biology, which is about this. And here are my 10 questions, except this teacher only had 8. When we let them pick like as many as they wanted, they picked 15 and 20, and they found out it was too overwhelming for both them and the students. 10 is a really good number for coherence in terms of picking content. Here is the second page of that organizer, and every kid has this organizer, so they know the questions. They know here's the units they're going to learn. They collaboratively create a set of guidelines or community principles for creating a good learning community. They pick the words, they define them, they give examples and non-examples. They talk about the rituals that they're going to be using to learn. So these are the teaching methods. And then these are performance options for individualization. Here is a unit from the course. And as this is not given to them done, as they progress through the unit, more and more are displayed. And students, teacher might ask, well, what are the structures? What is the cell structure and the functions? The kids might say, well, there is the structure and the function. The structure would be what? The organelle. And so as the kids talk, the teachers create this, and you can see it's color coded, so they can either even color code their worksheets. And as they work in the classroom, on different parts of this unit. There's also planning guides for comparison, photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And so you can see where that fits right here in photosynthesis and cell respiration as part of cellular energy. So you can see the coherence that this teacher is trying to do, and then the resources that they would find. And here's a resource that was found in, there's a video and a resource from the Zuni Learning Library about the cell structure, and the kind of things that they might need to learn about that. So this process is called smarter planning. And it was developed really to help kids with learning disabilities and other diverse learners keep up with their class. We found that the harder the class, the more important this process was, and the more important it was to assign resources that would help them learn each part of that planning process. SIM can bring a planning model based on the science of learning and reading. And so we even have a class called Extreme Reading made up of some power strategies, and they use these organizers to help them get through that extreme reading class. So the question is how do we find, sort, and link high quality standards informed content to our lessons? How do we increase student engagement and parent engagement? How do we communicate and collaborate with students in live and virtual environments? And that's where a lot of the work with the Zuni Learning Tree has focused. I'm going to go through a little slides. We're going to take a 5-minute break then, let you stretch, get some coffee. I have my coffee and I just need to drink it as we go along. So we can improve teaching and instructional decisions through open education resources. Like I said, I've used this in the classroom with the pandemic. My teachers having to be at home and provide instruction, they need to find resources on the web. This became a life-saving resource for me in terms of assignments. I would give them assignments. They have to go teach a student. They would have to get online. They would have to find resources, and they would have to assign them and monitor them. And then the parents could be there to monitor their completion. And so this became really, really an important site because it's so teacher friendly as opposed to some of the other open education resource sites. So what do we know about research on these kind of instructional interventions? I mean, I talked about the SIM interventions, and there's a whole variety of SIM interventions, and I can send you a list of all those and the links for that. But those are called instructional innovations that are evidence-based and represent high leverage practices. Use of open education resources. The Department of Education has now a whole unit at the Department of Education to promote the use of open education resources in schools, and they're providing grants and funds to develop new resources. So what do we know about the research? Well, one of the things that we have to get researchers to do is a lot of time researchers are in a publish or perish world. You publish an article, you publish an article, you publish an article. Well, from my point of view, from the review of the University of Kansas Strategic Instruction Model, the Center for Learning, we believe that researchers should not only be committed to conducting basic and applied research to improve education, they should also be, not me, committed to understanding how effective practices can be integrated into the complex school environment by intentionally engaging in ongoing collaborative design research with teachers and administrators to ensure that newly developed innovations become part of ongoing instruction. 90% of the work we did in integrating SIM was how does it fit with other educational interventions. The Harvard work on essential questions, the Johnson & Johnson cooperative learning strategies. How do we integrate universal design for learning? All of those things are educational practices that schools are expected to use, but the question is not using them, how do you integrate them so that they work together? all last year, when we looked at Zuni Learning Tree within the schools, we worked side by side with teachers with our masks on, seeing how they could integrate it with their current math curriculum. We used math as the fifth grade math as the target. We had to be very, very controlled about and not be everywhere. So we just used fifth grade math. And we looked at what district curriculum they used. And that particular district used the materials from Curriculum Associates, and they had an iReady test that they were using. And we wanted to find out how then Zuni, as a supplemental set of resources, could support it. And we find that many of the curriculums worksheets that were provided by the publishers, the kids didn't like the worksheets. They didn't like going through the worksheets. And so they did their work in class, but then we might have them play a game related to that so that they were more interested in it. Every single student who was involved, we had some target students in each class, and then the whole class said that the part where it was supplemental, where they got to apply and use the games and the songs and stuff, really made them want to go back and do more math lessons, because they knew they were going to get that more interesting piece besides just what was in the curriculum textbook. And because kids were working at home on their own, motivation to complete things independently became a really important concern. The Zuni tool is we're going to talk about. Tina, I'm going to check on Tina and where she is on the conference. We're going to take about a 5-minute break now. This is about halfway through. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Go get your coffee. Go get a glass of water, stretch, and then we'll be back in about 5-6 minutes. Okay? Looks like everybody's back. We're going to get started. I do have my chat open, so if you have questions on the side, I'll be watching for those. We're going to be having Kenesha, who is at the conference, and I was just hearing her talking to a principal who was interested in Zuni and learning more about open education resources. And so Kenesha is going to be joining us in a second. She's been listening, and she's going to help you log on, get your account, and explore some of the Zuni resources. This is your contact information. Tina McCord is the CEO. Here's her phone number and the website where you can get more access to it. I'm not going to make this full screen because I lose my chat access and my participant access when I go full screen. So it's easier for me to do it this way. I hope you can all see it clearly. I'm gonna make this as big as possible. Okay, so one of the things that we're committed to with the Zuni Learning Tree is raising student achievement is about a lot more than a score on a test. It's about teaching them to collaborate. It's giving them choice to investigate things that they're interested in. And I would say the one thing we learned about open education resources and working with the kids in these 5th grade classes was that they love to choose the kind of work that they wanted to do to learn the skills, because the skills, when the Catch It app, which was added last year, filtered all the assessment data and then made recommendations. It made recommendations across all categories: worksheets, games, videos, songs, a whole variety of resources. And then the teacher would say, choose one of these to work on. And the teacher would vet it and then choose. And then the student would do it. Well, many of the students didn't want to leave the activity. They were having so much fun, either in groups or individually, with the songs or the games related to the math practice, that it was hard for them to stop. And we saw so much more motivation, so much more confidence building. The teachers felt more empowered, that they had control of what was going on, and they were giving good assignments for the kids who need them. And because the Catch It app generated different materials for different kids, it was personalized learning immensely. So that was one of the takeaways, was that the student choice really was a major finding in terms of open education resources. We also wanted to make sure it was usable in terms of, did it fit within a budget? Did it give equal access to quality resources? Did it allow for parental engagement? And so the student versions, and Kanisha is going to show you both the teacher version and the student version interfaces, allowed for parent engagement, and the parents, for them to help the students or work with the students or choose resources that would help students. Teachers, in terms of usability, we knew that they didn't have enough time. They had trouble differentiating and personalizing instruction, promoting collaboration, and promoting parent engagement. And one of the things that Zuni does is it focuses on those things. Parents were always asking, how do I help at home? And so Zuni was one of those things where they could say, here's where the student is on their division of fractions. Here are 6 resources, games that you can do with your child to deal with division of fractions. What Zuni has intended to do is try to say, well, I know you have resources in your school. I know you have Google Classroom. I know you have this. I know you have that. And so we can help you put links to all of those things in the Zuni app, so you can go there and you can get access not only to the curriculum in your school, but also to all the other open education resources. So we designed it so that it would collect everything so that teachers could have it all there in front of them, not have to go to 5 or 6 different cloud drives or Google Drive, and then iCloud Drive, and then another drive that's set up by the school. And so it serves as a content management system. It has a custom dashboard that teachers change so that they can make it their own. In terms of a content management system, it's also a learning management system. Multiple languages are available, so you can set the language for it. And there's a lot of social media interaction, so that there are messages to different teachers. You can create groups and have people work on projects through a social media component of this. And so it will continue to evolve. One of the things we've learned is that we'd like to build our own assessment system within Zuni, so that we don't have to go out and have teachers import data from other assessment systems. But that is a goal for the future. So now, Kanisha, if you're there, what we'd like to do is take a look at the Zuni Learning Tree app. And so what I need to do is I need to give you screen sharing privileges for this. Can you do that? Melissa, can you make sure that Kanisha can show her screen?
Yeah, let me do that right now. Okay, she should be able to now.
Okay, Kanisha, can you do you have access to that?
Yes, it says I cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
I have to stop, so I will stop. That's up to you.
All righty. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time for all the web browsers that are on the screen above. Good morning. My name is Kanisha Adams, and I work at Zuni as a consultant. So I support our customers who use the app inside of their after school programs and even some of their school district partners. And so today I'm just going to take you through a brief opportunity to, number one, log into the account, log into your personal account to kind of see what Zuni has to offer. And then I think Dr. Keith has an assignment that he's going to want you to do after you see what we have. So I'm going to sign out over here and kind of take you through where you begin. So Zuni is a web-based app. So we are found on app.zunilearningtree.com. So it's not an app that you have to download on your computer or your iPad. It is a web browser app only. So you can use Google Chrome, you can use Internet Explorer, you can use Firefox, you can use whatever web browser that you have to locate our app. So we're found again at app.zunilearningtree.com. Over in the top, you can click log in. And your login, let me verify this first. Your logins will be your email address and then a password that you create. Yes, app.zunilearningtree.com.
Kenesha, are you supposed to have your volume off?
Oh, no.
Okay, thank you. We couldn't hear you.
Gotcha. All right. So I don't know if they were able to go through to zunilearningtree.com. And then there's the tab sign up now. And being that they won't be with a specific school, unless they are with they know the specific school they're already employed, they can sign up with their school, or they can sign up independently if they're communities working as community engagements.
Okay, so Amy, Lamisha, and Rhonda, if you could go ahead and do that, and then in the chat window, let us know when you're done.
So I'll walk them through it one more time while they're working it. ZuniLearningTree.com, ZUNI Learning, LEARNING tree.com, and I'll type it in the chat. And once that comes up in the browser, you can click sign up now.
Can you do this on a smartphone as well?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're using your computer, you can do this on a smartphone.
Yes. So you don't have to download an app. It's just a web-based app, so you can use a web browser to find it.
Okay, Lamisha and Rhonda, how are you doing?
I'm signing up.
Okay. I just don't want to make sure we lose anybody.
I'm trying to get signed in as well.
Okay.
Awesome. So those of you who were able to get signed on, you can now actually go to app.zunilearningtree.com to log in if it didn't log you in immediately. And you will use the same information that you used to sign up. You should have gotten an email notification to the email you used to sign up showing that you had been signed up to Zuni. Amy, did you receive that? Awesome. All right, so as a former educator, I understand wait time, so I'll give Ms. Cook and Ms. Rhonda a few more minutes. And while they're signing up, I'll bring up my Zuni Learning Tree that is already signed in as a student and as a teacher. So there are two platforms. This is the sign up platform where you sign up, and then this will be your teacher dashboard, and we'll walk through some features of the teacher dashboard, and then we'll also walk through a few features on the student's dashboard.
So one of the things we did was we created an online learning platform.
All right, just checking in. Ms. Cook and Ms. Rhonda, were you able to get signed in?
Yes.
Awesome. So are you able to see your Zuni dashboard here like I'm sharing on the screen? Thank you, Amy.
Yes, I am.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm going to walk you through is a few of the features and the materials that you have access to on your fingertips in Zuni. So my dashboard is kind of a dashboard that you use that centralizes all of the information that you either want to know right off the bat, you want other people to know, you want to share with other teachers, you want to share with your families, or that you want to share with your students. So some of the embedded dashboard material that we automatically give you every day is Wonderopolis. So Wonderopolis provides you with a wonder of the day. Students are able to read the wonder of the day. It's something that you can do as a daily do now. It's something that you can do as a community builder inside of your classroom. And you can also build questions around it, and you can build activities around it. But it's just truly giving students an opportunity to see something that they may wonder. So the wonder of the day, for instance, today may be, let's see if we click on it.
Well, thank you very much. Nice meeting you. Thank you for letting me say
It's talking about the Wonderopolis Explorer program. So additional wonders of the day. I know the other day it was like something about mosquitoes. You may see a wonder of the day about butterflies. It's pretty much, how do we get blood? Why is our blood red? It's just maybe any wonder, things that students may have asked before or may never have asked, and it provides them with the wonder of the day. We also have a quote of the day that it's already embedded every day. So the quote of the day today is follow your heart, but take your brain with you. So those are already embedded. The Be Inspired, which are motivational stories that are already embedded, and they're on your dashboard that you can use to build community and collaboration. We have the joke of the day that is already embedded. If you see Miss Tina, she has a weekly to-do list that she creates for her son so she can share this with her son. You can also share materials like this with your students. If there's something that they need to do every day, you can embed that and it'll show up on their dashboard, on the student's dashboard every day for them to, as a constant reminder. You can do the same thing with teachers and additional families as well.
I'm good. What's this regarding, Mike?
So the next thing, this here is kind of correlating to the area, so you can change yours so that it will give you the time, date, and temperature for where you are, and it'll pop up for you. My Garden is where you'll probably spend a lot of your time if you're using the open educational resources in Zuni. So Zuni has a lot of resources. As Keith stated earlier, when we did the Catch It app, you go through a gallery of 5,000 resources just to meet the needs for your particular student as it relates to the Catch It app. As far as our open educational resource works, we have over 100,000 open educational resources that students can have access to through your assignments and through the dashboard for students. So say, for instance, you are a second grade teacher. I don't know what content or elementary area you guys are working on, but you are a second grade teacher and you want to work on science content. So at the top of your dashboard, you can click grade 2, and then you're able to click science. So say, for instance, right now we're working on NGSS physical science. You can click on physical science. And teachers have choices as it relates to what type of material you want to expose and share with your students. If you have students that learn better by games, you can go to games only, and then you can see what games are available for NGSS physical science standards. And you can look at those games. There are a couple of things you can do with those games. You can share the game out with other teachers, other collaborators. You can assign this game to your student or a group of students. So if you have a group of students that you know learn better by games, you can assign that game to just those students. You can plant this in a garden. So your garden has particular folders. So maybe you're building a unit on matter and you want to plant this into the garden for week 2. You can plant this game into your garden for week 2 for that unit and continue to build additional resources in that unit garden for your instruction. You can also report a broken link. So as you know, we pull resources from all over the internet. And so sometimes those open educational resources or the places that we get the resources from may change the link. They may change the PDF that's attached to it. They may change the lesson. And so you have a way to report that broken link to us immediately so that we can go in and find that resource, maybe where it is located now, and fix the material for you. So say, for instance, you only wanted to see what were video and visuals for this content because you have some visual learners. You can click on the video and visuals and you can find the TED Talks that are available, the videos that are available. These have all been curated and filtered, so they're for teachers by teachers. Other teachers have used these resources before and said these are good resources to use to teach this content. So there are labs that you can use, and you can only assign these to students who may be visual learners. So you're doing differentiated instruction right inside of your content for NGSS. If you have print material you want to take home, you can provide that resource for them. If you want lesson ideas, we have lessons idea for you to use to teach. You have a smart device, inside of your classroom. There's smart board material that you can project for lessons. And then we also pull out the Teachers Pay Teachers resources that are already free, created for this particular skill. So I'm going to take you through assigning an assignment to a student. So if you have your students, you will be able to create your classes. So we already have a couple classes in here that I'll use just to assign an assignment to. You'll be able to add your class and add your students in your classes. We have a YouTube video here that kind of shows a little bit more of what that is. But if you have 5 or 6 classes, you can add every individual class. And then you can assign the skills and the tools that you want each of those students to use to those classes. The Catch It app, which is what Dr. Keith talked a lot about, we use this during our research to show teachers the benefit of using open educational resources to work with students. And so we did this with 5th grade students using their iReady data that was based on the Common Core standards. You're able to choose your file, upload that file, and then generate the resources that, and it will generate the resources that your students need as it related to their academic deficits from the file. So the Catch It app kind of shows you here how to use the resource, how it happens in 5 steps, and that is based on standard-based assessment data. And it creates a personalized learning collection for your student. So that is truly what we want you to take away. This is personalized learning. So the way your student individually learns best is the way the platform is designed for your student needs. So then we have reports tab that you can use, just kind of shows you the reports, widgets, school district and state, and then additional resources that are used for training if you want to know a little bit more about how you do certain things and how you navigate through certain features inside of the app. We have ebooks at a glance, QuickBooks, games at a glance, and then additional resources. So after walking through those features, do anyone have any questions about what you have at your fingertips based on that? If not, I'm now going to take you through how to assign an assignment for your students. All right, I'm going to check the chat just to make sure I didn't miss. Oh, I did. I have a few questions over here. Oh, everyone signed in. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to look over here and I'm going to say today I want to work on a 1st grade math standard. So I'll click grade 1 over here. Was working perfect, and then internet says not today, Kenesha. All right, so I'm gonna click on a grade 1. I work on a literacy standard, and so we're gonna work on 1st grade skill adjectives. So I'll click on adjectives. All right, so what is happening is all of the resources that have been filtered and found across the internet as open educational resources are now at my visual need. And so what I want to do is I want to assign an assignment to my students. So this particular game has also been rated. It's only a 1 star. Someone rated it, so I'm going to assign this to my students. So I'm going to click assign here. I'm going to assign it. I can either assign it to all users. If I click check, I'll be able to assign it to all users in the class. So I'm going to find a class I can assign this to. I'll assign it to this 5th grade math class. We're going to say, why are we doing adjectives? I'm going to click 5th grade math class. I'm going to assign it to all of the users in the class. and then I'll click next. And then I'm going to type what I want them to do with that assignment. I'm going to, try that one more time. 5th grade math, all users in the class. I'll click next. And then I'm going to give them an assignment. It's going to say, please review this adjective theme, rate it, and give a comment on it. I will select a start date. So I'm going to give them today, and it's going to be due by Friday. So then I'm going to check, make sure I put everything I want it to do. I can also automatically link this assignment directly to my Google Classroom so that it will pop up in Google Classroom if I use in Google Classroom. But I'm going to go ahead and assign it here in Zuni, and that assignment has been successfully assigned to my student. So my student, when they log in over here, this is a student's dashboard. So my student logs in over here. Where is that music coming from? Sorry, the video started playing in the background for my student. So this is the video, but the student's dashboard here will show their classes. So if you have 7 teachers working, all of their classes are going to show up here. So it'll show their classes. Their login looks the same. It'll show when they first log in, of course, the demo student, it gives them a quote of the day for them. So connecting to their social and emotional learning, it says, I am a great listener. And so then they are able to jump right into their dashboard. So on their dashboard, they have a lot to see, but we want to show you this My Classes. So here's this My Classes. They have 36 assignments due. So when they click on it, they're going to be able to see all the assignments that have been assigned to them. So if I go back to that 5th grade math class, because this student is in that 5th grade math class, that assignment that I just assigned to them will show up here as an assignment. And maybe I assigned it under my name. And that is how they will, so then they will click on the assignment. They will see the instructions. So listen to this song. Can you memorize it? We will sing it as a class. In the comment section, let me know how it is helping you to become a fraction master. So this has been assigned to the student. There are a couple things that they can do. At the bottom, they can comment on it. So this student will say, hey, this song was great. I understand fractions now. And then they will show your progress, so they can change this bar to show that they did what they were asked to do after they clicked it and they watched it. So they click it, it'll automatically open up for them in SafeShare. Here, of course, is a link that they may end up having to watch it on YouTube if the SafeShare doesn't come up for them. It may be blocked where we are. But then they'll go ahead and say, yes, I watched it. Yes, I understand fractions now. If they want to add an annotation, they can add an annotation, so they can record an annotation for you and say, hey, Ms. Anderson, I love this video. They can record and create a video of them maybe working some fractions out if you had them do an assignment where they had to show their work or something, or they could create just a new annotation where they were doing a written annotation. So you don't have to go and find an outside annotation tool. Your students can annotate the assignment right inside of the dashboard. So once they're finished, they can click submit. They can also attach some things to this if they need to. They can attach a Microsoft Doc, they can attach a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, a Google Slide, if they used any of that to complete the assignment. Once they're finished, you'll click submit. They'll click submit. Yes, submit it. And on your end as a teacher, you're now able to go in and see this completed assignment and grade the assignment for your student. So, does anyone have any questions about how to assign an assignment to your students? The first thing you have to do is create a class. So you can't assign an assignment when you don't have a student to assign it to. So you have to add a class. And we have a video here on creating class and adding students to that class.
So Kenesha, I'm going to jump in. Is one of the things that I've done is, let me share my screen real fast here. We'll come back to Kenesha in a second. Okay, so this is my Zuni. You see, this is hello, Keith Lenz, and I have a dashboard. And on my dashboard, Dr. Lenz's news. And so for my class, one of my classes, I said, list at least 2 ways you see that Zuni can assist you today in your assignments. And so then they started responding. So I got responses from everybody in the class about the assignment. Alicia Communication. Elisa is a colleague of mine who teaches other courses in our department. And I started, so you can see, are you getting these messages? We talk about a shared assignment in which they choose and discuss how they would use Zuni resources. So I have that. In terms of my student classes, I've started, here's a class for one of my internships. This is a group for
hey Keith, we can't see your classes, we just see your assignment. I mean, we just see your dashboard where you're showing all of the assignments.
I can see it's paused, so hold on here. Can you see that now?
Yes, we see your classes now.
Okay, so these are my classes. And so Tina gave me a demonstration class, but here I have a class that I created called Time with Grandpa Keith. And so here I have resources and assignments. I have a grandson who lives in Minneapolis. And so in my dashboard, my garden, I have Jack. And these are books that Jack and I have read together. And so he opens Zuni on his end, and we read these together right before bedtime during COVID. And so you can create more personalized ways of reaching out to students, reading with them. Parents can do this, grandparents can do this. So I think that you can be as creative as you want, and you can see it has Google links, Microsoft links, ebooks, games at a glance. There's a training academy to teach you how to do this stuff. And I found that with my dashboard, let's see if it'll go to that. On my dashboard, I can have communication with my colleagues and then communication with students in a particular class. So I found it really, really helpful. And so I'll stop sharing and I'll give it back to you, Kenesha, to see if there's something else that you want to talk about.
So I'll just share again. He just kind of showed you the classes that he has. And so if you're thinking about moving forward as to how would be the most efficient way to use it, I will go ahead and add the class. We do have a grade book coming soon, which will allow you to kind of see your your grade book. I know we're used to those traditional grade books where we write things on paper, or we're able to put the grades into a grade software device that our districts have purchased, but we will also have a gradebook feature once you begin to grade your assignments inside of Zuni, where you will be able to see the grades of all of the students based on the assignments that you have assigned to them. We didn't talk much about widgets, but you can create widgets. He just kind of showed you what some of those widgets were, but you can create communication widgets, and that is what Dr. Keith had created. He created a communication wizard for his students to have interaction, and you can create that as well. So if you create a broadcast, you can add the message that you want to that broadcast, and then your students or your colleagues are able to have a conversation on that broadcast message right off on the top of the dashboard. And so those are, again, great collaboration tools for you guys to use if you want to have a safe space for students to collaborate, create, and think. I think that's all. We have so much embedded in Zuni. I don't want to overwhelm you with everything that we have. I think the best use of your time is to again begin to explore the resources that we do have. We do have kindergarten through 12th grade resources. I will say right now our K-6 is very heavy. We're working on getting some additional resources built out for high school, but our K-6, even some K-8 material is very, very heavy. If the students go to their own dashboard, students are able to explore without the teacher guide. So once you get your students logins created and you add them as a class, students have the autonomy to go to the dashboard themselves and explore the library, the playground on their own. So say, for instance, you had early finishers who finished their work before time, they can go to coding resources on their own, and they can explore coding resources as early finishers at home or while they're in your classroom. Say, for instance, you had a particular student who really enjoyed just learning about writing and reading. They could go to the writing resources on their own, and they could explore a gallery of different resources that they could use to become better writers as students. And these resources are for students. So this is the playground that students can use inside and outside of the classroom. So they can learn about pretty much whatever they decide to learn about on their own. And so we think that the best use of teachers' time is to go in and find resources that you want students to take a peek at, but then also showing them that there is not anything you cannot learn if you just know where to find the resources. And so that's what we do. We enjoy it, and we're excited to share it with you.
Okay. All right. Well, so then if you'd stop share screening, I'll go back to the PowerPoint and we'll continue. And please just stay tuned because you may need to help us here.
I will.
All right. So do you see my PowerPoint? I hope so.
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. All right, so you've looked at the library, the planning garden, where the My Garden, where you put your resources. So you select your resources and you decide to save them, and then they can be, you create folders and you can organize them in your garden. You can give assignments. The Catch It app that's being refined will help you sort. And then the feedback allows for that collaboration. So all of these things are something that are going to take time to explore and to figure out. What we thought we would do is do a little activity here. And so what the scenario is this: Darnell is in 6th grade, but performs at about the 3rd or 4th grade reading level in math, writing, and reading. He's pretty much plateaued in that area. He struggles with lectures in social studies and science. All right, so it's hard for him to take notes as fast as the teacher talks. This week, he needs to learn about cells in his science class, and he'll be working with 4 other students in group work. So it's not by himself, so they're all going to have to look at this together. The main question that the group will need to address is, how does the water cycle work? We started with cells, but I think I changed it to water cycle. So forget the cells and look at how does the water cycle work. Briefly, on your Zuni app that you have, I want you to look for the water cycle. Now, remember, he's in 6th grade, but he's reading at a 3rd or 4th grade level. What I want you to do is think about the test that you would give. How would a test check understanding of the water cycle? What makes this topic difficult? So we have a question. We're thinking about the content of the water cycle. How would you measure it? What would make it difficult? What makes understanding the water cycle difficult? We're going through this planning process. The topic requires causal reasoning because the water cycle, one thing causes another and then causes another. So you're looking at a cycle for causal reasoning, but there may be some questions about comparison and inferring. And so based on this, what could you infer about the climate of Florida, for example? So it might require some examples to help you to reduce the difficulty of the topic. What I want you to do is relook at the resources from the Zuni library. How could they help you teach Darnell how to answer the critical question, how does the water cycle work? Take in consideration his skill levels. What I want you to do is, I want you to go into Zuni. I want you to look at the grade levels and the resources, do a search on water cycle. And I want you to tell me what resources you think might be helpful for Darnell. And what I'm going to do is, if you would just turn the chat on and let me know when you've got 3 or 4 resources and when you'd like to share out. Okay. So go ahead and get started. I'm going to give you about 5, 6, 7 minutes to play with this. And so I'll be calling on the 3 of you to share out. So how's everybody doing? You have any issues or questions? You have found at least one resource?
Okay, this is pretty cool. Under videos and visuals, I found the water cycle on untamedscience.com for middle school students 6 through 8. Under another tab, I found a water cycle simulation PDF. And then on nasa.gov, I found something on exploring the water cycle.
Okay. I found one called where it had a funny picture making sort of a cartoon of the water cycle, which I thought was funny, that I thought would be good to use with. I have a 6-year-old and he knows nothing, but he could get this. He could get the funny pictures. How about the rest of you, Lamisha, Rhonda? Oh, it says, okay, there's nothing on the water cycle. I'm not sure why. Okay. So you're
I couldn't do it on my phone. I signed up for Zuni on my phone and it's not navigable on your iPhone. You have to be on the computer. So it took me a minute to
figure that out.
My computer and pull it up and do it on my laptop.
Okay. All right. Kenisha, do you know anything about the use of Zuni on phones, because they're having trouble with it on the phones? I think we might have lost Kenisha. I don't see her name up there anymore. So, okay, well, so the phone that I was thinking that if you were using your computer, you would need another device to be able to look on the web. So that's okay. Lamisha, did you find anything?
I did. I found one, the water cycle from USGS, and it's like for 3rd through 12th grade.
Oh,
and it's a interactive thing. So I think with him being on 6th grade level, but reading and performing at a 3rd and 4th grade level will actually kind of help, because you can go from beginner to intermediate to advanced mode. And so I thought that was a good one.
that is a good one. A differentiated instruction and different for about the water cycle. Okay, very good. So overall, did you find it a kind of a usable tool when you were able to use it on your computer? Okay, and you can see some of the features that you could. So what I'm hoping that you can see, what I could use this on Monday, but over time, if I keep using it, it's going to grow into something that I can use as a bigger tool for instruction. And that's the goal. The goal is to get you started, but allow you to learn. I know that when I first started using Word, the only way I learned it was to keep using it. And over time, I got better and better and better at it. And this is the same thing. One of the things I like about this is on a lot of software packages, presentation packages, if you do like PowerPoint, you can embed the link in your PowerPoint. So you can be presenting on your PowerPoint, but have the link embedded and then go right to that resource with your class to do as a class, or assign that resource to them. So Lamisha, Rhonda and Amy both tried to do it on their smartphones, but had problems with that. Do you have any comments about the use of Zuni on smartphones? You are muted, Lamisha. I mean, Tanisha. Tina? I don't know if they're with us or not. Anyway, okay. So what I need to do, we're going to move ahead here. You can see the PowerPoint, right? Sure, we do that. Okay. So hopefully the idea that over time, this can become an assistant that you can access your school's resources and the resources that you pick, and to provide differentiated instruction. Hopefully that there's two things here. We have the sim, which I presented a little bit on smarter planning. which has course and unit organizers, learning strategies, content teaching routines, social emotional learning, strategic math. But then with most of these, you're going to need supplemental materials through Zuni. And so both of these programs are compatible and can be used together. Here is an example of a graphic organizer and adding content. And if you notice here, they have, this is on federalism, and it has here federal mandates. It has an assignment related to it. You can attach links to it for different resources in it. And so the whole idea is to take well-planned content and then attach excellent resources to them. This is one on federalism. And you can see here that within the different figures, you get the student progress monitoring. You have a variety of organizers that you can pick from that we're working on, and that you can begin to have your plans or well-organized, explicit visual and graphics. And what we know about at-risk kids is that visual graphics really are powerful for them, and even more powerful when you color code them with your materials. So this kind of gives you an idea of where you might go if you stay with this and continue to build on it. In our research, we found that the greatest barrier to these open education resources was the time required to locate them. Researchers found that locating credible OERs was time consuming, and that teachers have set on time for this. But when they do it, then they have trouble communicating with students. And so in short, the decision-making process of looking through all this library of resources was problematic. That's when the Catch It app was created, so we could zero in on the most important apps that were effective. The findings were, when we put the Catch It app in, which had the assessment component, teachers and students, we had 5 teachers and all the students in their class, 3 teachers and all the students in their classes, and then target students. They reported it was highly useful to use. It improved their decision making, and it provided good supplemental 5th grade materials. The 4 target students and the majority of students similarly reported they liked it, they wanted to use it, and they preferred it to other resources in the curriculum, because in the web, they had more interaction, more fun kinds of activities, and it was differentiated easily for their success. And success was what made them want to do more. We know more research needs to be conducted, always more research, but we know that kids like it. We know that they're more engaged. Right now, in the research and open education resources, we can't say that if you use open education resources as a supplemental resource, you're going to increase student achievement immensely. That research has not been done yet. It doesn't mean that you're not going to find gains. Kids will tell you they did better on their tests, but we don't have any large studies that really demonstrate that. So right now, we're looking at teachers reporting, how do you like it? And they say it's a useful tool. During the COVID-19, that when they had to have kids at home and in school, and they could use this as an alternate to promoting student virtual learning during the pandemic. So we have a lot of hope. We know that kids feel more motivated, more empowered, and teachers' ability, their self-efficacy, their ability to say, yes, I feel really strong, I can make a difference, increase when they use open education resources. That brings us to our stopping time. Do you have any questions before we stop? What I'm going to do is, you'll have access to the recording if you email me, and my email is, I'll type it over here in the chat. blens1@uca.edu. We can send you the PowerPoint, we can send you the white paper on the research and other information that we used in support of this presentation. Okay, if you have any questions, then I want you to enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. You take care.
Thank you, you too.